Hi students, this is Mr. Yao. Today we're going to learn the last lesson of unit circle, which is how to use unit circle in two other ways. But first, let's quickly recall the unit circle. If you kind of forget, we have learned it in 5.8c. You can refer back to all of these values. But something else we also want to emphasize on is in the first quadrant, we have everything is positive. Second quadrant, sine is positive. Third quadrant, tangent is positive. And fourth quadrant, cosine is positive. Something else, sine is your y value, cosine is your x value, and tangent is y over x. Then of course, cosecant will be the reciprocal of sine, 1 over y. Secant will be the reciprocal of x, of cosine, so it's 1 over x, and cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent, which is y over x. Now let's get into the examples. First one, cosecant 90 degrees. If you recall quickly, here's a little small unit circle. 90 degree, the values we have is 0, 1. And cosecant is actually the reciprocal of sine. Since sine is y, this is actually 1 over our y value. So 1 over 1, and that is 1. Number 2, cosine 270 degrees. 270 is right here, and the value is actually 0, negative 1. And cosine is the x value, and that would mean 0. And quickly, if you keep forgetting about, oh, my sine should be y, my cosine should be x, my tangent should be y over x, I've already showed you guys last time, if you actually quickly draw a little triangle, and let's say that's your angle theta, that's your x coordinate, that's your y coordinate, that's your unit circle, which is r, which is 1. So in this case, sine theta would have to be y over 1, which is y. Cosine theta would have to be x over 1, which is x. Then tangent is y over x. You can quickly just draw a little triangle to remind yourself about these representations. Next, tangent 300 degrees. Okay, let's think about it. 300, where is it? It's actually going to be slightly past the 270. That's where it is. And if you recall, well, if this is the case, my y value is clearly the longer leg. So this is where we would have a positive 1/2 and a negative square root of 3 over 2. My tangent is y over x, so it's going to be a negative square root of 3 over 1, which is just going to be negative square root of 3. Next, secant 180 degrees. Well, here's where 180 is, and that is 0, negative 1. Secant is 1 over cosine. And cosine is our x, so it's 1 over x. In this case, is 1 over 0. That is going to be undefined because it is 1 over 0, which does not work. So that's number 4. Number 5, cosine 0, which could have a degree symbol or not. Even a radian is the same. So at 0 degree, my coordinate is actually 1, 0. I wrote it wrong. 1, 0. And cosine is the x value, so it's just going to be 1. Number 6, cosecant 330 degree. 330 is even closer to our 360, so it's going to be right here. And as soon as you draw that down, you should realize the x is your long leg and the y is your short leg. So that means it's going to be square root of 3 over 2, comma, negative 1/2. Cosecant is 1 over sine. Sine is our y value, so it's 1 over y. Since y in this case is negative 1/2, it's actually 1 over negative 1/2. And I can choose to multiply both the top and the bottom by a 2. That will get rid of the denominator on the bottom. That will leave me with a negative 2. Number 7, cotangent 150. So 150 degree is right here, closer to 180, which means your x is going to be the long leg. So this has to be the point, negative square root of 3 over 2, comma, 1/2. In that case, cotangent is x over y, so it's got to be the negative square root of 3 over 1, which is negative square root of 3. Number 8, tangent 315 degree. Here it is. 315 is right in between 270 and 360. So that means the 45, 45, 90 triangle, which means this is going to be square root of 2 over 2, comma, square root of 2 over 2. Sorry, negative square root of 2 over 2 for the y value. And if it's y over x for tangent, they're the same, so it's just going to be a negative 1. That is number 8. Number 9, tangent 210 degree. 210 is right here, just past 180, which means x is going to be your long leg, so that has to be negative square root of 3 over 2, comma, negative 1/2. Both the x and the y are going to be negative. And is asking for tangent, of course, is going to be positive, but it's y over x, so technically it's just negative 1 over negative square root of 3. That's going to be, let me actually write it out, negative 1 over negative square root of 3. That's going to simplify to be a square root of 3 over 3. That is number 9. Number 10, sine 240 degree. 240 is getting closer to the 270, which you should be able to clearly see. That means my x is actually the short leg, so it's going to be negative 1/2, negative square root of 3 over 2. Sine is my y value, so it's just going to be negative square root of 3 over 2. Number 11, secant 225 degrees. 225 is right in between 180 and 275. So it's going to be a 45, 45, 90 triangle, which means the values have to both be negative square root of 3, square root of 2 over 2 for x and y. Secant is 1 over cosine. Since cosine is x, this is also 1 over x. So basically is 1 over negative square root of 2 over 2. Same thing, multiply the top and the bottom by a 2. That will give you a 2 over negative square root of 2 over 2, square root of 2, simplifies to be negative square root of 2. The ones with radical is a bit more complicated, but shouldn't be too bad. Next, secant 315 degree. It is a fourth quadrant angle, and it's right in between 270 and 360. The values here would be square root of 2 over 2, comma, negative square root of 2 over 2. Which means I can start finding it. Secant is 1 over cosine, which is 1 over x. So it's going to be 1 over square root of 2 over 2. So you can also think it as I'm just flipping that fraction. That's just going to give you a square root of 2. Secant 45, well, good news is everything in the first quadrant is positive. So if it's just a 45-degree triangle already, see, that means it's going to be square root of 2 over 2, comma, square root of 2 over 2. Cosecant is 1 over sine, which is 1 over y. That is going to be 1 over square root of 2 over 2, simplifies to be square root of 2. Next, cotangent 270. Well, here's 270. That's a special angle, which is actually going to be 0, negative 1. And cotangent is x over y, so it's 0 over negative 1, which is just 0. Next, secant 120 degree. 120 is inside the second quadrant, just past my 90 degree, which means if I actually write down the values, it is going to be relating to a 30, 60, 90 triangle. And my y coordinate is actually the longer leg. So this is going to be negative 1/2 square root of 3 over 2. Secant is 1 over cosine, which is 1 over x. So it's 1 over negative 1/2, which is just going to be a negative 2. Again, you can choose to multiply the top and the bottom by a 2, and then simplify it. Last one, cotangent 90 degree. 90 degree is also a special point. That is 0, negative 1. Cotangent is x over y, so it's going to be 0 over negative 1, which is 0. So these will seem a bit complicated, but good news is for the quiz, you will actually have access to the unit circle we generated. But yeah, try to get used to think about where exactly the point is, find the coordinates, and then use your relationship, sine being x, sine being y, cosine being x, and tangent being y over x to find the exact value. Now let's get to the other kind of the questions. This time you are given a trig ratio, but is asking you to find all the angles that would give you these values. So let's have a look. Sine theta equals negative 1. Remember, sine is your y value. So basically right now I'm saying y equals negative 1. Well, y equals negative 1 is right here. And that's the only place inside the whole unit circle your y value is actually negative 1. So that's the only angle, which is 270 degrees. Next, tangent is square root of 3 over 3. Remember, for tangent, the first quadrant and the third quadrant are both going to give you positive values. So tangent being square root of 3 over 3, well, that means your y is actually smaller than your x, because remember, tangent is y over x. If your y is smaller than your x, here's the actual angle right there. So that would be a 30-degree possibility and also 210 degrees, because this is square root of 3 over 2 and then 1/2. 1 divided by square root of 3 is square root of 3 over 3. Next, cosecant theta is given, but here's the thing. Inside a unit circle, you never actually have a cosecant value, but you have something that's related to cosecant. So I'm going to need to find what is sine theta first. All you need to do is flip this fraction. So it's going to be negative square root of 3 over 2. But remember, sine is your y value. So if I put in a unit circle for my y value being negative square root of 3 over 2, so they're kind of on the longer side, which means I can either have it here or here, because that's how I can have the y values longer than my x, y value longer than my x. The two angle options will be 240 degree and 300 degrees. 20, secant theta is square root of 2. Same thing as number 19, you don't exactly have a value for secant, so we need to find a function that is related to it. So it's going to be cosine, we need to find the cosine. We just need to flip it, so it's going to be 1 over square root of 2, which is square root of 2 over 2. Cosine is x. So that means we're trying to find anywhere the x is actually around square root of 2 over 2. Well, here they are. The only way to get square root of 2 over 2 is to relate the angles to 45-degree angles. So the first quadrant is just going to be a 45-degree, and then the fourth quadrant is going to be a 315 degree. Moving on, sine theta is 1/2. Here it is. Sine is y. So it's saying the y value is going to be small. So if the y value is on the shorter side, so that would be my triangle, because my x value would have to be bigger than my y value. So it's a bit of a flat triangle. In that case, I would have 30 degree and 150 degree. Next, cosine theta is square root of 3 over 2. Cosine is your x value, so that means my x's have to be a bit longer than my y, so I have the flat triangles both in the first quadrant and the fourth quadrant, because that's where cosine is actually positive. So in this case, I would have a 30 degree, I would also have a 330 degree. There we go. Next, 23, tangent is undefined. So y over x is undefined, which in other words, your x would have to be 0. And here they are. When x is 0, you either have a point on top or a point on the bottom, because that is 0, 1. This is 0, negative 1. So your options are either 90 degree or 270 degree. Next, tangent theta equal 0. So y over x equals 0, which means y would have to be 0. So if y is 0, well, here it is. You have a 1, 0. You also have a negative 1, 0. However, you gotta be very careful. The question gave you a range of the values you can pick. It is from 0 degree to 360 degree, but not including 0 degree nor 360 degrees. So even though 1, 0 satisfies this tangent theta equals 0, we're not including that point, because that angle is going to be a 0 degree angle. So this question only has one answer, which is 180 degrees. So these questions will be a little bit tricky. You first need to relate it back to the functions that you do know, which would be sine, cosine, and tangent. And then you can actually use your unit circle to kind of go through these values. Or if you do remember some specifics, that will be helpful. A lot of the time, these questions would have two answers, but for anything special like 0 degree, 90 degree, 180 degree, and 270 degree, that may have just one answer. But something else, if let's say I change the requirement to be 0 degree is less than or equal to theta, which is less than 360, then suddenly your answer for number 24 would change. You would also have to include the 0 degree. So that is the second big type of question in 5.8e. And that is everything for this lesson. Thank you.